when you had had an interesting life, like I had, when you reach 62, it looks more like a crash. Yeah. Looks more like, I was looking at pictures of car crashes yesterday, and I thought, yeah, that's how it feels. All of a sudden, you realize you are just a few years away from membership in AARP, and you start getting discounts for seniors. And I thought, wow, I never expected this fast. So, as part of my job as a priest, I actually help people to die. Very often I get called to the hospital, people I don't even know, who want to have a priest in the last minutes. And so regularly I go there to do that. Naturally, when I'm helping somebody to die, it doesn't matter the age, you start being you get reminded of your own mortality. The fact that one day you will be in that same bed, and probably there will be another priest helping me out. And I concede it causes some fear in me sometimes. Because before, when I was young, I thought, oh, that's too far away, I don't care. But now I know that's not the case. But I wanted to say something important before we start dealing with this issue today, is that mortality is not equal to death. At least in the Bible, is not. Mortality actually is a healthy understanding that our time is limited, that we have so much time to do so much things, or to be different, or to do things, or to look for other paths in life to develop ourselves. I mean, all these plans, and believe me, I still have plans. I haven't given up on them yet. But mortality is a healthy understanding that life is limited, and we must not fear it. It's part of who we are. But death in the Bible is very different, because if you look at and the Bible is full of quotes about death. If you look in the Bible, you will find that basically there's a lot of people who appear to be living, but are actually dead. There are people who walk around in life, and I have an expression, a Cuban expression, we call that a pez en la nevera, fish in the fridge. Because you see, the fish is alive, has the eyes open, but it's not there, it's gone. It's like this. And some people have chosen to move through life dead inside, although by all appearances, they are alive. So it's important that we understand what role plays death in our lives. Because mortality is going to be there no matter what. But death, we can do something about it. In my opinion, death actually curtails the enjoyment of life. You have been given this time to fully enjoy this time, and yet to suffer it too, because that's part of living. But at the same time, if you are dead, you can't really enjoy this. And I think some of us have gone through periods of our lives in which, in a way, we were dead inside. And we were not enjoying life, which in my opinion is a sin, all by itself, not to enjoy life. You see, death is also an equal opportunity employer. He employs anybody and anywhere. And so clergy are not exempt from that. And please do not ever think that we have a perfect life. We don't. We have a life as the life you have, identical. And so what happens is when we get into a death narrative, when we start thinking about ourselves in forms that are detrimental to the enjoyment of life, we put them in a form of it's a narrative that starts controlling all of our lives. We feed ourselves such narrative of death. You are not beautiful enough, you're not good enough, you're not worthy, you're not loved, You are alone, you are not rich, you're lonely, you're dirty. I mean, we feed ourselves all these narratives at any given time. And the possibilities of us to enjoy life start diminishing as we feed that narrative. I had received death messages, and we all do. And I always think of text messages. These death messages come to us very often. And it's not from people who actually wishes us harm of any kind. It just happens. And the question, the fundamental question to deal with these death messages is how we respond to them, now that the fact that they've been thrown at us. I had a specialist on church growth, because I've been always wondering about what should I do better to help the congregation to grow. And she basically, not in these words, but she basically told me I was too old, too fat, and too foreigner. And she was a specialist on church growth. She said it in nicer ways, but at the end, that's what she meant. I was too old, too fat, and too foreigner. What do I do with these death messages? How we respond to this? You see, you have to understand in all of us, we sometimes judge ourselves very harshly. And we open the door for all these messages to reach us. So for a while, I remember I said to a member of the congregation, I am going to take accent suppressing classes. And he said, and he's an English person, he says, why? I understand perfectly well. I said, yeah, but other people may come. And then I said, too old, I can't really do much about it. But too fat, I could be on a diet. So I start accepting and incorporating this, what I call death messages. Then we have been so stretched out in resources here that we still don't have a person in the office. And then you get, Father, your sermons are too boring or too flat. And so you still get these death messages. Then when I was feeling really bad about this, and you see sometimes you can, I started realizing that the day I was baptized, I was 11, and I was baptized by my own choice. I talked to the priest and I said, I want to be baptized. And he instructed me several weeks, and then eventually I got baptized. So the day I was baptized, I became heir of the promise. Heir of the promise. And the promise is this, that I'll be connected from that side, not from my side, but from that side, I'll be connected to the source of all life. The source of every life there is. And that as such, that would mean that I will be forgiven always. And you see, guilt is the opening for death messages. Guilt allows you to start receiving this and turn this death narrative into your life narrative. And that actually kills you from within, and eventually you start existing but not living. This quote we heard today, John 3:16, is probably the most famous quote of the Bible. God so loved the world that he gave his only Son, that whoever believes in him shall not perish, but have eternal life. And of course, at 62, you start thinking about eternal life more often than you used to when you were young. So I said to myself, what is eternal life? I want to ask that question in the terms of today. And that means basically that this source of all life that sustains me even when death entraps me and enslaves me, this source of all life means that life will never fail me even when I fail to life. Life will never fail me even when I fail to life. Life eternal is good enough, is worthy enough, is clean enough to stand up and live and love and laugh. You see, contrary to what a lot of preachers have said for a long time, I don't find that my mortality limits me. The fact that one day I will leave this world limits me, because I'm in connection to the source of all life since the day I came to Christ. And that connection from his end, not from my end, will never fail, if I am to believe that I'm heir to the promise of eternal life. So life eternal is not something that happens when I'm about to breach the pearly gates. Life eternal happens the day I come to Christ, the day all of us come to Christ. We live in life eternal. For the Jewish mind said there were only two types of life: the world as it is and the world as it will be. And they had two terms for this. So when you come to Christ, you start living the life of the world as it will be, not as the world as it is. And that's how they refer to eternal life, is to live in that world that is not here, but is coming. A lot of this, and I look for clues in media. In this commercial of the cream cheese, you remember the cream cheese commercial with the wings and people jumping from one cloud to the other, singing forever? Not really that exciting. Incredibly enough, there's a lot of people who have at least a faint idea about this, thinking that is my future the day I die. So I come here to get trained to be admitted at the pearly gates. And we forget that we heard John 3:16. I did not send my son to judge the world. I sent my son so the world may have life. We really like to rush to judgment fast. Either judgment of others or judgment of ourselves. You have to understand that this eternity that we have been sold before, this disembodied experience in which we are going to be flying around and singing with golden harps, is Plato, not Christianity. Jesus would have no idea what we were talking about when if we show Jesus the cream cheese commercial, it will go like, this is not right. That is Plato. Plato, philosopher, Greek philosopher Plato, who spoke about that. And somewhat that came into be part of the theology of the church. And it's a mistaken turn of events. Because God, eternal life, doesn't start at the pearly gates. Start the day you come to Christ. And you are connected to that source of life, of all life, eternally on his side, not on my side. And that means I could face whatever death narrative, whatever death messages, even I have believed at any given time. I can survive them all. Because I'm connected to that source of all life, which is in the person of Jesus. What happens at the end of our lives, at our physical life, when we had to face our mortality head on? I had no idea. And that's actually faith. Because if you have an idea, then it's not faith. To be able to say, Jesus said on the cross, in your hands I commend my spirit, is faith. Not knowing for sure what will happen to him is faith. And I'm not for sure what will happen to me. The only thing I know is I'm going back to that source of all life, where I actually came from originally. And I expect that by the end of my life, on the balance of all the mistakes and all the good things I have done, I'll be able to see my life as a fruitful result of my coming to Christ. And I hope that for those things that I would not be able to claim with pride, God's mercy will cover them sufficiently. And therefore I will not fear death. I will face death as a Christian, as someone who is going back to God. We are living in eternity already, my friends. Our bodies will decay, but our desire for life will not. At the end, love is always more powerful than death. Amen.